Hello, I am here with Ryan Ansin, who is a co-founder of Rev Clinics. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Beautiful, and I love it's a pleasure to be here talking about cannabis and equity in the industry. What do you have to say, or what are your takes on equity in cannabis, equity and inclusion in cannabis?
I think it's a really exciting conversation, and I'm glad to be having it with you, and I'm glad to be supporting Leah and Edmund and Alchemy and GIFT. I think that in general, we've needed to go from conversation and ideation to action and data-driven decisions a long time ago. And we are now today, anybody who's taking part in this industry, beneficiaries of so much work that's been done before us. And I think that we need to pay tribute to that, and we need to pay tribute to the fact that this industry should have evolved and existed outside of the shadows, outside of what has become the illicit market for so many years because of a misguided war on drugs that was so painful and so harmful and continues to perpetuate even today. And so the conversation around equity in cannabis needs to signal that we remember and that we recognize and that this is still going on today. But we also need to put systems in place, and this is why I'm so excited about GIFT and Leah's vision and Leah's energy. We need to put systems in place to use data to show what has, or to look at what has worked and what hasn't worked, and help support in a myriad of ways the entrepreneurs that are really going to make up the fabric of the future of this industry. So when I think of the cannabis industry present day, I think there are constituencies that are missing from the fabric of the entrepreneurial world. And I think that that's really a symptom of the longevity of the misguided war on drugs, as we said. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm excited about with GIFT is that Leah has created a platform where believers in what she's trying to achieve, which I think that there are many, can come together and share resources of all kinds, because the data is showing that there's not one silver bullet in order to achieve success. And I hope in this conversation we can talk about even what success is, because I think so far it's been really short-sighted. But after looking at this nationally and seeing what each city, each state, and many public-private partnerships that have attempted a solution, after looking at all of those, it's clear that there's really a rubric, a matrix of different types of resources that our entrepreneurs in this community need. And by community, I mean the cannabis community really need, because it's a mighty complex industry. And this is hard and expensive and time-consuming and confusing. And what GIFT can provide our entrepreneurs here in Massachusetts is a platform to have a greater likelihood of success. And I think people forget that there's a 95% chance of failure in the startup community in general. And so when you add in the complexity of this plant, the complexity of this industry, the regulations in this industry, and the price of entering this space, my goodness, do we all need allies. And I'm so glad personally to support the initiative, and I'm so glad that Revolutionary is acting as a bit of a Swiss Army knife in providing all that we can to these entrepreneurs and to Leah and Edmund and GIFT directly.
Yes. Wow. Beautifully said. So beautiful. So I love how you said that there's basically like a fabric when we think about equity, and that there's something missing from the fabric. And essentially it seemed like GIFT is something that is going to be a link that is going to be a patch in the fabric.
Yeah, for sure. So what I mean by that is when you look at the ecosystem of any new marketplace, there's the need for product market fit with all different types of communities and all different types of consumer bases. And if we don't have a diverse group of entrepreneurs that are leading the way to meet consumers where they're at, then we're going to have major gaps. There's a long way to go for our industry here in Massachusetts to become accessible to all, not just the entrepreneurial world, but also the marketplace. Mm-hmm. This industry needs to get to a point where we're at a scale and there are enough providers and enough companies in the space that scale leads to the decreasing of price, leads to a more expansive, more expansive access to all people in Massachusetts, and that comes from sophistication in the product, so that it's safe, consistent, and does what it's supposed to do, but also in the branding and the packaging and in the accessibility of our consumers. So I'm really excited for a more diverse group of entrepreneurs here in Massachusetts, and anything that I or we can do to provide the training, to provide the resources, to provide the contract manufacturing, to provide a lot of downside protection from the investor standpoint. That's the expression. That's what I want to do. I want to do anything that I can to help entrepreneurs not cut corners in an unsafe way, but cut corners in the learning path so that they don't, peers and friends and community members don't need to make the same mistakes time and time again. There's a lot of lessons from other industries, and there are a lot of lessons for those of us that have struggled to make it to where we are now. And I think that we have lessons to share, and gosh, would I love to do so.
Yes. Okay. So this mentorship is almost a way to share the lessons so that other people don't have to make the same lessons that have already been made. Is what I'm
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, beautiful. So how do you think, you mentioned a little bit about the impact that you want to see made here in Massachusetts, and how GIFT is involved in that. What do you think that GIFT can do locally as well as globally in the cannabis network?
Yeah. Boy, there's so much. And I'm glad that Leah's at the helm along with Edmund, because her energy is unstoppable and seems to be bottomless. But what can GIFT do locally and specific to the complexity of the cannabis plant? One is, as I started to allude to, but cannabis is a plant and the origin of so many products that can really help patients on the medical side and customers on the adult use side achieve much more specifically and much more safely and in a more healthy manner exactly what they're trying to do. I think that in our in the adult use side, alcohol has been such a catch-all for fun and relaxation and all of these different things, but there's a real edge and there's a significant health and emotional and societal downside to the aggression and anger and I think reactive nature that comes from alcohol. And with cannabis, this isn't just THC to sink into the couch. There are over 150 compounds in this plant before you even get to the terpenes that do really specific, fascinating things. I think of this one little plant in all of its strains and all of its varieties as a rainforest in itself. And the more we learn, and that's really entrepreneur driven, because entrepreneurs need to guide the consumers, which then drives the science and affirms the products, but really guide the community towards using a cannabinoid or an entourage effective cannabinoid in a certain form factor to achieve what they want. And so that's a lot of words to say, if you want to relax, let's relax. If you need CBN and a little THC to go right to sleep, let's do that. If you really want to have a great open conversation with a lot of CBD, a little bit of THC to get the something with your loved one, with a friend, let's do that. If you want to dance, let's do that. And let's not have a hangover the next day. And let's not have, umpteen thousand calories at night. And let's not do all of these really painful, harmful things before even getting onto the medical side and considering the pain that we've had in our communities and the opiate use. So much data right now is pointing towards medical cannabis really helping people either not get onto opiates in the first place or alleviate the likelihood of them becoming addicted. And even though there's a medical designation for that, there's still a business around that. Biopharma and nutraceuticals and all of these things are major, major industries that cannabis touches. And so I'm often asked advice for entrepreneurs, and I think one of the greatest pieces of advice that I can give is there's such a big opportunity here. Be really specific with what you're driving at, because if you focus on just sleep or just pain or just you name the thing, there's a consumer base there, and there's a great opportunity to help them live their life in a better way while doing well oneself. And it's really the onus and the opportunity for GIFT to remove some of the barriers, to expedite some of the learning, and to provide this whole rubric or matrix, as I was saying, of resources to support our entrepreneurs along the way. It's a hard enough industry, and there's no reason to do this alone.
Yes, there is no reason to do this alone. And GIFT is providing such a beautiful network as well as a basis.
For sure.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
On the network side, so I was taken by Leah in moment one. I wouldn't even say day one. It's moment one. And when she got me hook, line, and sinker, she didn't know that this was such a big soft spot or meaningful point of intentionality for me. But one of the things that I love about the vision that Leah presents is that each of the graduating entrepreneurial endeavors, however it's formed, however it's structured, whatever their intention is, by way of product line or business category, each of them is encouraged, and she, I'll let her use the words, but pushes them, encourages them, and embeds into their structure a flywheel that encourages them or requires them to help the next group and the next group. And I think that's so critical to pay it forward in any industry, but I've not heard that a lot in these attempts at collaboration or social equity and economic empowerment in cannabis, maybe because it's so fresh. And we're really trying to graduate the first groups, especially here in Massachusetts, into success. But let's assume as a community that we are going to create success in this first cohort, the next series of cohorts. And let's encourage the continuation of this assistance, of these kind of expedited learning journeys, so that we can all succeed together. And I love that that's baked into the framework of GIFT, this flywheel of positivity and symbiosis.
Yes. This is beautiful. I definitely think that's something that sets GIFT apart, is that she knows that it's going to be prosperous. So already planting seeds of how can you give back? You're going to have such a fruitful harvest. How can you provide for other people? So that's sure. Definitely a beautiful.
And that's the nature of this plant. I just love that about it. There's so much that can be done, and I hope that we look even deeper into our systems around how to continue to create that beneficial flywheel. I think a lot about the fact that chocolate companies and gummy companies and all these confectionaries are popping up, and I really want entrepreneurs to look at, where did that chocolate come from? What are we doing in present day to other communities, perhaps Cote d'Ivoire or Papua New Guinea or Guatemala, where some of this chocolate is coming from, or Brazil, where a lot of our sugar is coming from.
Yes.
How can we support even further up the supply chain? Support people that or support our entire community from not just seed to sale, but now we're making chocolates, we're making all these other things that it really shows that even if you think that you're buying one little gummy from a local dispensary, that sugar came from somewhere and that flavoring came from somewhere, and there were humans involved in that too. Yeah. And so I love the opportunity to take these things into founding frameworks.
Yes. Connecting all the lines, connecting all the dots. I think this is a beautiful opportunity to do that in cannabis. It's like it reaches so far. So, yes. Wow. Well, thank you so much. I could continue going because this is such a fruitful conversation. But thank you so much for all that you are providing and doing, and just for everything that you shared with us today.
It's really our honor. It's our honor. It's our pleasure. It's a privilege. We're excited to be part of a more successful, more diverse ecosystem that succeeds together. I can't wait.
Yes, I can't wait too. And we'll see you soon. And then Rev Clinics, is that the best way that they can contact you? Revolutionary Clinics?
Yeah, I'm easy to find on LinkedIn, Ryan Ansin on LinkedIn. I'm otherwise not on social media, but fully accessible at Rev Clinics.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.